Let's cut to it. Middle-class sailors are getting priced out. Back in 2012, you could buy a new Bavaria 37 cruiser for around $160,000. Today, that same boat's north of $375,000. Wages haven't doubled, but boat prices have. The latest numbers from Boats Group show the average price for a 36 to 45-foot sailboat is now $327,000, up 18% in a single year. This isn't inflation, it's exclusion. The market's made it clear. Boats aren't for regular people anymore. They're for the deep-pocketed, the second-home crowd, and the folks who never ask what fuel costs. For the rest of us, the dream's drifting out of reach. And that's exactly what we're talking about. How we got here, what's vanishing, and whether there's still any way to stay afloat. It used to be simple math. Save some money, skip the brand new SUV, and you could afford a decent used sailboat. Hell, even a new one if you were willing to keep it modest and work for it. But now, it's like the market opened a private club and forgot to send most of us an invite. Let's look at the numbers. In 2012, a new Bavaria 37 cruiser cost around $160,000. That same boat today, you're looking at $375,000, if you're lucky. That's not a slight uptick, that's a full-on chokehold. And it's not just Bavaria. Look at Beneteau, Jeannot, Catalina. Across the board, you're seeing that 30 to 40-foot range shoot up in price like it's competing with beachfront real estate. You'd think, maybe it's just new boats, but used boats have caught the wave too. A 1990s-era Catalina 36 that used to go for $40,000 now sits at $65,000, and it still needs a new rig, fresh electronics, and likely a rebuild on the engine. So you're spending more for something that needs more, just to get less. And sure, some of that is inflation. But inflation doesn't explain this scale of increase. Boats have become boutique. Even mass production cruisers are now loaded with electronics, complex systems, factory-installed gadgets, all of it great for the builders, terrible for the budget-conscious sailor. The dream used to be this: work hard, buy a boat, cruise part-time, maybe full-time if you were lucky or disciplined. But now, just buying the damn thing feels like chasing a moving target. You save, the price jumps, you adjust your expectations, and the marina fees spike. The worst part, the gap between income and boat prices keeps growing. Median household income in the US is around $74,000. The affordable new boat for a small family now costs 4 or 5 times that. Who the hell are they building these for? There was a time when you could find a sturdy, no-frills 30 to 35-foot cruiser for the price of a used pickup. Solid glass hull, basic electronics, a diesel engine that smoked a little but always fired up. These were the boats that got people on the water, and they're vanishing fast. What happened? For one, maintenance costs started outpacing value. Old boats need work, rigging, sails, through hulls, electrical. When the cost to refit exceeds what the boat's worth on paper, owners give up. Some just let them rot at the dock. Others try to sell, but buyers aren't lining up to inherit a project that could bankrupt them by haul-out. Then came the post-pandemic bubble. Everyone stuck at home decided it was time to live the dream, and suddenly, even crusty 1970s cruisers were listed at absurd prices. A tired Hunter 33 with water stains and mildew was going for $45,000, and someone bought it. That set the tone. Prices rose, expectations dropped. And here's the kicker. Once affordable production boats are no longer getting built. The industry's chasing bigger margins, which means bigger boats, more tech, and fewer entry-level models. The budget cruiser, the one a teacher or nurse or mechanic could buy and sail off in, is now a unicorn. Some say just buy a cheap boat and fix it up, but the marinas are full of boats that died that way. Good intentions, no time, no budget, and no margin for surprise disasters. You want to refit an affordable cruiser? Get ready to spend $20,000 on parts and another $20,000 on problems you didn't see coming. The affordable cruiser didn't just disappear, it was priced out, run down, and left behind. And with it, a whole generation of working sailors is being shut out of the lifestyle. Buying the boat is just the start, and that's the trap most people fall into. You find a decent used cruiser for $45,000 and think, not bad, I can swing this, but the boat itself, that's the cheap part. What'll get you? What sinks more dreams than rough weather ever could is everything that comes after. Let's start with the slip. In many marinas, even in second-tier cities, you're paying $400 to $800 a month. Some places in California, Florida, or the Med, over $1,200. That's a mortgage, and it's not optional unless you're hauling out or trailer sailing, which most 30 to 40-foot boats can't do. Next up, insurance. Depending on the boat's age and location, you could be paying $1,000 to $3,000 a year. And if the boat's over 20 years old, good luck finding a policy without jumping through flaming survey hoops, and maybe even replacing your wiring or fuel system to qualify. Then there's maintenance. That's where the bleeding really starts. Need new standing rigging? That's $4,000 to $7,000. A sail? $2,500 easy. Haul out and bottom paint, $2,000 minimum, and that's assuming you don't find blisters, a worn cutlass bearing, or a frozen through hull once she's out of the water. Engines are another money pit. Diesel, running rough? Prepare for $500 here, $1,200 there, and one day, boom, you're staring down a $10,000 repower, and heaven help you if you've got out-of-date electronics or a leaky tank buried under the floorboards. And all that's just keeping the thing afloat and safe. You want comfort? Add cushions, solar, refrigeration, maybe a composting head. Now you're $10,000 deeper. People say, buy a boat for what it is, not what you'll make it. But let's be honest, most budget boats need work. And once you start, it's hard to stop. That $45,000 deal becomes a $75,000 drain before you've even left the dock for a weekend. These hidden costs don't just sink budgets, they sink plans, dreams, relationships. I've seen folks sell everything, buy the boat, and end up on land 6 months later, broke and bitter, not because they didn't love the boat, but because they didn't budget for the beast it becomes. There's a slow-motion crash happening in marinas across the country, and most people aren't talking about it. Walk the docks in any harbor, and you'll find row after row of boats with faded canvas, peeling teak, and a for sale sign that's been sun-bleached into oblivion. These boats belong to boomers. The generation that bought them new, sailed hard, then slowed down. Now they're aging out of the lifestyle, and they're looking to sell. Here's the problem. No one's lining up to buy. Boomers bought in during the sailing heyday. Back then, wages matched the cost of a modest cruiser. Marinas were affordable. Time felt more flexible. They sailed for decades, some even full-time. But now, they're in their 70s and 80s, and they're done. The boat's too much work, too much money, or their health just doesn't allow it anymore. So they list, and wait. You'd think with so many boats for sale, prices would plummet and the next generation would jump in. But younger buyers don't have the same financial footing. They're buried in student loans, rent, childcare, and a cost of living that's gone absolutely sideways. Dropping $50,000 to $100,000 on a boat, plus all the hidden costs, just isn't doable for most of them. Plus, a lot of these older boats need major work. A survey reveals soft decks, corroded chain plates, ancient wiring. The sellers want top dollar because they remember what they paid or what they spent maintaining it. But buyers, they see a money pit, not a cruiser. So the boats sit and sit. Sometimes they get donated, sometimes stripped and scrapped. Other times they just rot in the slip, draining what's left of their owner's savings. And it's not just the boats, it's the knowledge too. Boomers are the last big generation that really knew these systems inside out. They could rebuild a pump, swap a starter, rebed a stanchion, all without Googling it. That's fading fast, and with it goes the self-reliance that made budget cruising possible. What we're seeing is a generational cliff. Boats are changing hands less and less. Marinas are full of ghosts. And the worst part? The dream of handing down a boat, of passing the torch to a new wave of sailors, it's flickering. Not out, but damn close. Alright, after all that hard truth, let's talk about the flip side. Because while the middle-class dream of owning a shiny 40-footer might be slipping away, the dream of getting on the water isn't dead yet. It just takes a mindset shift, a little grit, and a whole lot of patience. First things first, scale back, way back. Forget the 35 to 45-foot blue water cruiser with teak decks and bow thrusters. Start looking at smaller, older boats. Think 24 to 30 feet. Yes, they're tight. Yes, they're slower, but they float, they sail, and they can still carry you to places that matter. Boats like the Flicka 20, Albin Vega, or even a well-kept Catalina 27 can be had for under $10,000 if you're patient and handy. And speaking of handy, you're gonna have to be. The budget sailor doesn't pay someone to fix things. You learn to patch sails, chase wiring gremlins, and replace fuel lines yourself. YouTube, forums, books, that's your boatyard now. The good news? It's empowering. There's nothing like firing up an engine you rebuilt yourself or sailing a boat you rescued from the brink. Location matters too. If you're docked in a high-end marina, you're bleeding money every month. But trailer sailors skip all that. If your boat can live in your driveway and launch at a ramp, you've just dodged slip fees, haul-out costs, and a whole host of headaches. Even with a fixed-keel boat, Some smaller, cheaper mooring fields still exist if you're willing to row out to your boat. Cruising on a budget also means slowing things down. You don't need the latest chart plotter or radar dome to sail the coast. A second-hand tablet, good paper charts, and common sense still work just fine. You don't need a fridge. A cooler and regular shore stops will do. You don't need a fancy autopilot if you've got a wind vane or just a little discipline. And let's talk mindset. If you're chasing the Instagram perfect interior or comparing your boat to the shiny 40-footers next to you, you'll burn out fast. But if you focus on the freedom, the sound of water on the hull, a sunset at anchor, coffee in the cockpit, you'll remember why you started. Look, this lifestyle is harder to reach now, no doubt. But it's not impossible. If you're willing to trade comfort for adventure, ego for elbow grease, and expectations for creativity, the water's still out there. Still waiting. You won't be the biggest boat in the anchorage. You might not even have standing headroom. But you'll have wind in your sails, salt on your skin, and that rare feeling of doing something most people only ever talk about.